Hey guys, today we're gonna be doing what if Tenma never saved Johan. So this is a monster what if, and it causes some huge ripple effects throughout the series that changes quite a lot. And basically, the way that this happens is Tenma follows the doctor, the director's orders, hospital director's orders, of course, um, and decides to save the mayor instead of saving Johan. And as a result, Johan dies of the gunshot wound in his head. He succumbs to his wounds. Now, this could lead to a few differences, starting off with Dr. Tenma himself and his relationship with Ava Heinemann. So, if the story went this way, then Dr. Tenma probably would have married Ava Heinemann and may have even eventually been promoted, as well as the fact that him being used by Director Heinemann was a way of the director inflating his own reputation. Now, this practice continuing may have led to Tenma becoming just sick of it and leaving, or it could lead to him leaving due to just the immoral practices and behaviors of Ava and her father in general. Just besides him, the his father-in-law taking all of the credit for his work. So yeah, another thing is something that could trigger his quest, essentially to locate information about what happened with Johan and his backstory, is him having a mental breakdown of sorts once he realizes what a big, seemingly mistake that he has done by not saving this child's life. Now, obviously, we know after seeing the whole series that if Johan died, it would have saved a lot of people's lives. Uh, just an example being that small town at the end of the series, none of them would have died. Um, Another example of someone whose life would have been saved if Johan wasn't in the picture anymore is Mr. Mueller. Mueller or Muller, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his name. I've forgotten, but he would have survived, and so forth would mean that he and the Fortner family would have survived. This means that Nina Fortner would have lived the rest of her days not knowing about her brother's demise and her having killed him successfully in this version of the story. And even if she did remember, or if her parents decided eventually to tell her, then she might actually go on a sort of quest to find answers like she did in canon. So that could cause Tenma and her to cross paths once again. But that would be in a somewhat similar way to in the canon of the story. Another character that this affects quite greatly is Grimmer. Now, Mr. Grimmer probably would be in some ways if Tenma did not involve himself with the whole Johan story and he stayed on his path under the hospital director. Tenma would be out of the picture, essentially, at least for the most part. He wouldn't really be the main character. So, in that alternate version of the story, you could say that Grimmer was the main character. And it would be pretty interesting to see, because he's one of my favorite characters from the series. You could see firsthand the whole Magnificent Steiner situation, um, him going through the leads to find more history of 501 Kinderheim and reveal his past. That would be interesting, cool to see, rediscovering emotion, how he pretty much saved that kid's life. Although the kid probably wouldn't have even been in that situation since Johan's not there to put him there. The kid, I don't remember the kid's name exactly, but the one who was about to jump off the bridge. That whole situation would have never happened because Johan wasn't there to convince him to do that and bring him through the dark streets, essentially, to, guide him in some ways to them. So that would not have happened. So yeah, those are just a few examples. Another example of an issue that's caused by Johan being dead early in the story is that the vampire of Bavaria never gets to reunite with his son, unfortunately. Or if he does, it's later, because Johan is the whole reason that that reunion was ushered forward. He is the one who quickened the pace of that reunion, and maybe even if he was not there, it would not have happened. So that's one thing that happens with that, and another one of the outcomes that happens from the story and negative effects that this has is that just who else would be negatively impacted by the story? That's about Dieter. Dieter would have been very much negatively so impacted by Tenma's not being included anymore. Dieter would probably be killed. To be honest, he'd probably be beaten to death or abused, which is quite unfortunate. That's one of the major losses of this what if scenario, whereas pretty much majority of the rest of what happens from this is positive rather than negative, saving lives. Another thing is Tenma not being there means that the Turkish district is done. It's burned down to the ground. So that's quite unfortunate. Um, Someone else might be able to uncover the plot. Let's say, as I was saying, if maybe Tenma goes along with it, but Nina doesn't, or the other way around. So let's say if we have Nina discovering the whole plot with the bunny, and she's able to stop it without the help of Tenma, unless Tenma's in, as I said earlier. So yeah, those are some of the major changes that would happen with the story. Another one would be the guy that helped Tenma to escape from prison. He probably would not have ended up escaping successfully, and his brother might actually have ended up dying from the crash. And he'd just end up leaving prison when it was scheduled for his 5-year term that he was supposed to be in there. Um, Although it is possible, he is a master of escape, so he could have still successfully escaped from there without Tenma's help, possibly, but I don't know. And yeah, that's about it. Those are some major differences. Klaus Polpe, his son, wouldn't have really been involved unless, as I said, with Grimmer being the main character in that case, revealing Klaus Polpe's whole situation. Roberto, he would not have really been involved in the story because he's just a regular hitman outside of that, I think. So that's one thing. Unless we could have a Johan substitute of sorts, where we have his assistant character that was introduced somewhat later on in the series. One of the only other survivors of 5-1 Kinderheim, that whole situation at the orphanage. But I don't know if he would really become like Johan without as much input from Johan himself. He'd probably have that memory suppressed in the back of his mind and it wouldn't have resurfaced. That's a possibility. Maybe the neo-Nazis or whoever were the villains who were trying to burn down the Turkish district. Maybe they would be able to bring him to fruitions. Fruitions? I think that's the correct word. I'm not exactly sure. Fruition, yeah, I think that's the word. Anyways, that's about it for this what if. I can't really come up with anything else to continue this at the moment. So essentially, many lives are saved, some are sacrificed because of it, unfortunately. And yeah, that's about it. Bye, guys.